Hello and welcome back to another episode of Blood, Guts, and Social Commentary. Today will be part 2 of our look at controversial art through the decades. 1932, Todd Browning's Freaks. This movie was considered terrifying for the time. In its first screening, many ran from the theater. One woman even claimed it caused her to miscarry. You heard that right. Caused her to miscarry. The film centers around a freak show and cast real freaks in the parts to make it as realistic as possible. The film centers around a normal and very pretty-looking woman supposedly falling in love with a midget. The marketing campaign for it had phrases like, "Can an average woman fall in love with a freak?" Due to the appearance of the actors, this film was banned for quite some time because it was just considered too disturbing. Now this film is hailed as a classic and had several other films hark back to it. In the remake of Dawn of the Dead, real amputees were used to create the fast-moving zombies on the assumption that somebody that lives like that every day will have a more natural movement than somebody pretending to be missing a limb. There were also several films before and after Freaks that used amputees and people that had been injured more to show how tragic it can be. 1937, Pablo Picasso's Guernica. Much like the 3rd of May, which was discussed in the first video, this depicts the horrors of war. It is now hanging in the UN and at one point was covered while Colin Powell conducted a press conference on the war in Iraq because they realized it was kind of hypocritical to be talking about a war we were currently in and trying to stay in while you're in front of a painting that's talking about how terrible war is. 1937, John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. This was once banned for profanity. The issue some have with it now is they claim it's offensive to women, minorities, Christians, and the disabled. The disabled grievance comes mostly from the character of Lenny, who is referred to as a bit slow. The major issue with him is he also does not know his own strength, and this does lead to some issues and some unfortunate murders. 1945, George Orwell's Animal Farm. This book was banned in the US due to a fear of children being exposed to communist sentiments. This was also banned in the Soviet Union for being clearly anti-Stalinist, proving once again you just can't please everyone. 1946, Disney's Songs of the South. This movie was pulled for being too racist, even for 1946. It was re-edited, released again, and was still too racist. Some that have seen the film have even commented it actually made slavery look pleasant, which kind of clearly not true. This is also where the song Zippity Doo-Dah comes from, if you ever wondered that as a kid, because that drove me insane. Having no idea where this song that played all through these Disney things came from. 1949, George Orwell's 1984, because that's not confusing. This book was banned for pro-communist sentiments and is frequently referenced in culture even today for a Big Brother watching or a nanny state, due to all the cameras recording everybody and people feeling that we are heading down that way. 1951, J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye. Typically this is censored due to its profanity, but the main character also engages in less than idyllic behaviors, such as smoking and drinking. Most notably, Mark David Chapman sat down and read this immediately after he shot John Lennon. Several other shooters have also been found with this book, and there's a whole big conspiracy theory now about how this leads to mass shootings. Because watch out, the Illuminati's in our books now. 1954, Sir William Golding, Lord of the Flies. This book was banned due to profanity and violence. Now it's required reading for many middle and high schoolers, like a lot of the banned books on this list. 1961, Victim. This film is notable simply because it's hailed as one of the first to use the word homosexual. It also shows the effects of staying in the closet, which was illustrated through blackmail and suicide. So not only was it controversial for addressing that homosexuality existed, it was also the first to talk about how damaging it can be to somebody's psyche to stay in the closet and to not be able to come out to those close to them. 1961, Verdana. The main character in this film is a nun who's about ready to take her final vows. She's contacted by her uncle, who's her only living relative, asking her to come see him. After some hesitation, she agrees. On the last night of her visit, she fulfills the very creepy request of donning his ex-wife's wedding dress. She's also drugged. He takes her back to the room. He is intending to rape her, but ends up changing his mind at the last minute, but then tells her he did when she regains consciousness. This means she cannot go take her final vow to become a nun. If this weren't weird enough, there's also a drunken parody of Da Vinci's Last Supper, singing of the Hallelujah chorus from Handel's Messiah, This was all done by beggars and whores, and this led to some serious controversy. Mostly and not surprisingly by the church, they condemned this film as obscene and blasphemous. 1962, Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. This is now considered to be an American classic, but it still faces bans and controversy even today. In the time period, Atticus defending a black man accused of raping a white woman was beyond shocking. This book openly talks about race relations and rape, and it constantly causes this book to get banned. Or at least puts it at the center of the debate of whether this should be a required reading in schools or not. 1962, Stanley Kubrick's Lolita. The issues with the film are pretty much the same issues with the book, so I'm just going to talk about them together. In this film, an older man pursues a 14 to 15-year-old girl. Not only is it considered shocking due to the lust for a younger woman, but the idea that she's a willing participant in possibly seducing this older man. 1963, The King's Men with Louie Louie. The FBI actually investigated this song because they wanted to see if the lyrics were obscene. It turns out they were just kind of incoherent. Interesting fact is this song was actually originally written by Richard Berry and recorded by the Pharaohs, though the King's Men version is the most well-known, mostly due to its association with the movie Animal House. It's also the most covered song. 1966, Orgies of the Mysterious Theater. I can't find a video or images of this anywhere, but apparently it's an instrumental and dance piece that takes place alongside dismembered animal corpses. The artist has been arrested and imprisoned several times for his work. 1976, Frederick Wiseman with To Cut Follies. This is a documentary showing the inhumane treatment prisoners at a mental institution for the criminally insane suffered. This was barred from distribution since it was considered to be a violation of the right to privacy for the prisoners by the state. Yeah, I'm 100% sure their behavior being exposed had nothing to do with this film getting banned. 1967, Arthur Penn with Bonnie and Clyde. Given the youth of the characters in the final scene in this film, it's constantly referred to as immoral, and was considered a possible bad influence on the teenage audience it was directed at. Because, teenagers need a movie to make them make bad choices. 1969, Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Many schools and libraries have banned this book due to Angelou discussing being raped as a child and her experiences with racism. This is once again one of those books that seems to be banned because people seem to believe if we stop talking about it, it stops existing. I, for one, would love to know what color the sky is in their world. 1969, Midnight Cowboy. This film shows male prostitution, and not in the fun, warm Deuce Bigalow male gigolo way. There are several clients in the film that are also religious fanatics, and there's also a fair amount of violence. This is also the only X-rated mainstream film. The X rating didn't used to be exclusively for pornography. It existed before the NC-17 label was created. Actually, do you guys want an episode on the history of the rating system? I could make it. I just want to know if there's interest, so seriously, I'm asking. This concludes the second part of our timeline of controversial art. We will pick up next week at 1971 with Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please hit like and subscribe. If you don't enjoy what you're hearing, please leave me a comment and let me know what you'd like to hear. Thank you.